I was introduced to Ridley Walker in 1992, and like most people listening, I expect, it had a truly profound effect on me. But it was doubly powerful because I was living in the Canterbury area at the time. I was working on a PhD in mathematics at the University of Kent, but I was also living in the woods a lot of the time, cycling around East Kent and camping in the woods during the more pleasant periods of weather. And I started exploring some of the places described in the book. It felt like I was sort of weaving myself into Ridley Walker world at times. After many years away, I moved back to Canterbury in 2007 and decided I'd better reread Ridley Walker. I was able to then figure out quite a lot more of the place names because the internet had come along, so there were websites helping out with that kind of thing. I also noticed the diagram in chapter 15 when Riddley's in the ruins of the cathedral. There's a diagram, a sort of sketch of a shape, and he describes it as a dolly shape and makes reference to the dollies they hang over women giving birth, a custom which isn't further explained but which seems fascinating. And I realised on rereading it that this was tracing the outline of the western crypt of the cathedral, which is the oldest, the least changed part of the whole structure. I began visiting the crypt regularly in the years that followed. I was doing local history research and I became fascinated by what seemed to be a current of secret Marianist devotion in East Kent in the Saxon Christian era. The shrine of Our Lady Undercroft, or Our Lady of Canterbury, at the centre of the crypt struck me as the survival of some kind of ancient goddess temple. So that speculation, together with the role of the crypt in Ridley Walker, gave the place a certain magic aura for me. Plus it's just a beautiful, cool, calm, quiet place of sanctuary. And then spring of 2020 arrives and everybody's talking about coronavirus and there's a feeling of dread on the streets of Canterbury. People aren't making eye contact, there's talk of panic buying. It feels like there's a tsunami of death coming, and the cathedral's closed to tourists. But it was still open for private prayers for locals, so I decided it was probably my last chance to get down to the crypt. Went down there and lit a candle, sat quietly, and then realised it was quieter than it had ever been. In fact, this was because it was the first time I'd ever been down there where there was not a soul down in the crypt. And I just sat quietly thinking about the plagues of the 14th and 17th century and how it would have felt in Canterbury then. And then I found myself thinking about Riddley and the crypt in the ruins in the future. So there was this sort of sense of apocalypse past, apocalypse present and apocalypse future. And suddenly it all collapsed down into a single point, and I was just suspended in time and frozen in this moment. And it was really unlike anything I've experienced before. And a sense of the sanctity of the place was really quite tangible. And I found myself feeling the need to offer up something like a prayer, although that felt somewhat awkward because I'm not a believer, so I don't really know how you do that. And I found myself just coming out with something seemingly really quite banal, almost embarrassing, just saying something like, I hope everyone will be all right. And then thinking, oh, that's ridiculous, Matthew. It's not possible for everyone to be all right, and who are you asking anyway? But I went away and I realised that it had come from a very deep place of innocence and benevolence. And when I decided to occupy my weeks early on in lockdown by putting together music mixes for my friends and anyone else who wanted them, 1 hour mixes of contemplative, devotional and just generally beautiful, uplifting music, I needed a title for the series, and I realised that this is really what I was trying to do. I was trying to just offer up some goodness for the well-being of everyone, for all life. It was an act of wanting everyone and everything to be all right. So I decided to call these music mixes the Canterbury Prayer, directly referencing Ridley Walker, for those that knew. 100 days into lockdown, I decided that was probably enough, 100 hours of music. I wound it down at that point, at a point where people were starting to be able to see each other quite a bit more. So had it not been for Ridley Walker, I wouldn't have had that experience. There wouldn't have been a Canterbury Prayer. As it's a very broad church musically, what I represented. There's something there for everyone. So I'd invite you to listen. You just have to Google Canterbury Prayer. You'll find it. 100 episodes on Mixcloud. Enjoy.